So I want to just introduce the teaching, learning, and technology roundtable concept to everybody this afternoon. It's kind of new, and introduce our facilitators. We'll talk about the aims of the session real quick. Most of it is going to be discussion, and then maybe at the end, I hope we have time to talk a little bit about just a quick plan for the faculty that are here, what they might be able to do, and then what resources they might need from IDS, from IFEX, and we're lucky enough to have two deans here who might be able to provide some support and resources too. So
We're looking for answers.
yeah, and support and all that kind of stuff. So that's our plan for this afternoon. But first, let me just tell you a little bit about the teaching, learning, and technology roundtables. This is really David's idea. David is about 6 months into his tenure here at MCC, and he came and said, we need to do more collaboration between our departments, between IFEX and IDS, and then also with faculty, get out and see faculty, talk to faculty. So that's really what we're doing. We're visiting different campuses, just to hear from folks. What challenges are you facing? Give you an opportunity to talk to each other, and an opportunity for us to kind of share some of our experience and expertise too. So, and we have a new colleague with us. In addition, Jessica has just joined our team. So David and Jessica, will you introduce yourselves to the folks? There's a lot of people on Zoom. Let me put them up so you can see them.
Jessica, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Okay. Hello, I'm the newbie. My name is Jessica Delmonico. I am an instructional designer within the instructional design services team.
And I'm David Bentz. Like Naomi says, I've been here kind of just short time, but been doing instructional design, working with faculty to enhance not only face-to-face courses, but online courses for well over 20 years. Have a doctorate in it. And I've always found that the best way for us to solve problems is to have conversations about what we're facing in the classroom. And there's lots of experience I can just see in my Zoom that I'm sure a lot of you got different anecdotal ways of solving some of this. And, let's just have a conversation about it, see where we go.
Thanks. And that's actually the perfect segue into just some guidelines that I was thinking of for the conversation, that really the faculty are the experts in their teaching. They're the experts in their students and their subject matter. So, we don't come in with easy answers, and we have some ideas and ways to support, but, speak up, share your experiences, and then balance that with listening to each other. And then, of course, share experiences and be mindful that we have folks here from lots of different programs. And so sometimes those specific program details can get us bogged down in specifics that aren't useful for everybody. So we just try to keep it open and useful to as many folks as we can. And so the aim of today's session for us, as we were planning it, was really that you would leave with one idea for improving Canvas completion, homework completion. I will say off the bat, I don't have any tips and tricks. I don't think there are tips and tricks for this, but so I'm gonna call it an idea of some things that you can do. And then the other aim would just be to make some connections with each other by talking to each other. Sound good? Any questions?
Yeah.
Right. So the first kind of topic I'm hoping to raise, we're going to use a double duty here. Have people introduce each other. So you can, especially for David and Jessica, who are new to the college, I really want them to see the faculty and know what they teach. So we'll do some introduction, but if you could do two things in the introduction, and introduce yourself with your name and the subject that you teach, and then share with us the specific problem that you're seeing most frequently related to Canvas or learning activities or homework completion. So yeah, I don't want to hear quite yet about the implications of it, like the problems that it's causing, but just like, what are you seeing? They're not doing the homework, they're not doing it well, they're doing it late, they don't know how to do it. Give us that little piece of information, okay? So let's talk to faculty here. And I'm just gonna call on you, is that okay? Bob, will you go first?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having this. Bob Gentleman, I'm an automotive instructor. I usually see the first quarter students, and there's usually a challenge getting the homework finished. It's assigned and not getting done on time or in a timely fashion. That's what I'm seeing.
Any?
My name's Jenny Jackson. I teach ESL at Metro. I'd say one of the bigger problems that I've seen is plagiarism. Because the students want to do so well, they want their English to be good. They often plagiarize. It's never like malicious. It's just like they don't know always. And that seems to be where they go to find things is Google. And so they'll copy something which is obviously not their own. So I think that would be one of the main issues I've seen.
Great, thanks. And thanks, Jenny. Ryan.
Ryan Schaefer, I teach construction over the 4 campus. I think I see the biggest problem with homework is the new students, especially the beginning of the quarter. It takes a while to kind of figure out how much work it's going to take to get it done and get them on board. But I do have a new problem this quarter. We have students that are coming to every single class and doing absolutely none of the work. So that's new for me this time.
Not doing the work in the class either?
Yeah, at all. Nothing.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. Good to have you.
I think we've got 15 minutes to solve that one.
Yeah, we'll fix it for you before you leave. Rick.
Rob.
Rob, I'm sorry, Rob.
Rick was on. I don't know where Rick went.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm Rob Wazalewski with CDL. The biggest thing I see is the students getting the homework done in a timely fashion. They always want me to extend the stuff on Canvas for them. Because their main objective here is to learn to drive. So they really put the homework on a back burner per se, which is also important to understand what's going on in the vehicle and on the roadway.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. It's good to see you. I think Rob is just over there, yeah. Hi, Al, how about you?
Hi, I'm seeing about, the same thing everybody else is. They don't want to do it. They'll wait till the last minute. They'll do their online homework in class and then fail the in-class test because they were doing the online stuff. And then struggling out in lab, just everything that was mentioned before, and just really looking for some ideas or input on how to just improve it, not fix it.
Yeah, thanks. And Al is an automotive technology board. Tim.
Yeah, Tim Bowling, utility line. I'd say our biggest problem is maybe it's probably not completing the assignment. And then if they do complete it, you can tell it was in a hurried fashion. And what we hear in the classroom is, well, we're hands-on learners and stuff. That's where we really learn. And so that's kind of our problem.
Thanks, Tim. Dustin, are you there?
Yeah, Dustin Shropshire, Civil Engineering Department. I find that I'm having pretty good luck with getting folks to turn in lab assignments or work that's due at the end of the class, but it's the homework aspect that we're still struggling with. And it seems like a lot of students just want to see if they can turn everything in at the very end of class rather than, weekly.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Dustin. Pat? That's there. Rick, do you want to? Oh,
Here, I'm here. Just a second. Can you hear me?
yeah,
Yes.
Ish.
we can hear you.
Okay, so here's what I'm seeing. I have students, we're at the end of the quarter. They've been issued homework at the beginning of the quarter. They still haven't completed it, even though we have reminders. Every couple of weeks, we'll remind them all this stuff is due. You got to get it done. We're a week out, and I have some that haven't even started any of the stuff that's supposed to be done. And we remind them, we ask them if there's a problem at home. We ask them if they have computer issues. We present them all the solutions that we can, and they're just not doing it, period. They're going to fail the class.
Yeah, that's serious. Yeah, I think that, and Rick. Oh, and Pat is in the auto body. appropriate to say that, auto body, Dustin is civil engineering. Rick,
What I see is students waiting to the last minute and rushing through it just to get it done and really getting nothing out of it because they rush through it just to complete it. Yeah, and then when we take the tests and stuff, it really shows it.
we missed anybody?
Kevin's here.
Oh, hi.
We have an in-person.
I'm so focused on Zoom. How are you?
I work in stealth. My students love it. Kevin Ingles, Diesel Technology Department. I do the high school classes and one traditional class during the quarters. High school or traditional, didn't make any difference this quarter. I have a number of folks. Actually, I ran the numbers a week ago. I have 23 total students and 7 of them were passing. I did have some A's, which kind of makes you feel like I did somewhat of my job. But I had folks all the way down to like the 43 percentile because they had not even opened anything to even do the homework. And it's not just a fact of busy work or something like that. It's hard to teach a class if they don't have the basis of the information we're studying. And it just drives me nuts when I hear that term. They're good with their hands or something. Great, they're shoplifter. I'm happy for that. But they actually work on stuff. Yes, you're good with your hands, but you have to know what you're working on. What am I actually doing with them? Am I using the right tool, the right procedure? Anything like that, that comes from the actual book work, discussion in class, which we try to make short and sweet to get them out in the shop. But again, if they don't understand what we're even working on, or the concept of it, it's very hard to even do the lab sometimes because they have no idea. And as Pat was saying, I have people hit me up right now. What's the password to get into this program? Okay, that's stuff we did first week or two when they're actually starting a class. And right now it's a little bit better, but the worst part to me is when you have the folks that's getting the 98, 90, 96, 98%, and then the other person gets himself up to say C or B, that's just robbing the person who did the A because the other folks were able to get a grade somewhat. You know, I fail a lot of people, probably most in this department. I'm not saying I'm proud of that, but I try to, I don't want to put a problem onto somebody else. But it is the homework that really drives all these folks down. They're all capable of doing it. If you actually take a class and do like a study hall type thing with a class, which you're not really supposed to do, they have no problem getting the homework done. It's just a matter of them taking the time to actually do it.
Thanks, Kevin. Jackie, Nate, do you have anything else you're seeing that you want to add?
I would just say it seems to be exemplified post-COVID.
Oh, okay.
You know, I don't think students not doing homework is not a new thing. I did example one, but obviously post-COVID, it is just reared its ugly head and it seems to be a lot worse.
I would double that it's a lot more prevalent. There seems to be a culture shift that it's okay if I don't get my homework because I'm gonna pass anyway. Seems to be more than that.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody, for sharing those.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
One of the things that we kind of fight with is like with our advisory group, it's the one thing they want is us to make them more responsible, you know, things like that. And so, you know, some of our, and I can remember back a couple of years, we had a student that he was late all the time. You know, when, excuse me, once we dug into it, he had to take his brother to work. That was his only ride to work. And so sometimes just digging a little deeper is, but also making them responsible. So, you know, we're kind of in that catch-22 sometimes because sometimes we don't know what that problem is and they're afraid to tell us.
Yeah, Tim, I should pay you for that segue because that's my next question, which is why do we think this is happening? And we don't have to talk about it for too long, but I think that's a really good example that we sometimes like need to figure out what is underneath, right? And so to give the example of somebody having responsibility outside of class, that's happens a lot. What are other things that people are seeing? Like, why do you, the faculty, think this is happening? What reasons have students given you? I mean, COVID has come up already. I think that's certainly something that's occurring. But just kind of quickly, what are your guesses about why this is happening? If you had to give me a reason.
No child left behind, and then COVID didn't help.
So high school practices. Is that what
Right.
we're- Okay. David said kicking the can down the road, like just, yep. So and there's-
They're here now, they're our problem now. Right, they graduated, they're our problem now.
yeah, okay. Others?
Other online distractions, I see a lot of that. They can't focus on one thing at a time. They're certainly
Yeah.
online all the time, but it's not doing homework.
I will admit that I think my attention span has gone down for reading and working since there's so much available for me to do that's maybe easier, more fun. Yeah, okay, thank others, reasons why we think this is happening?
Well, I think in my side of it, I think we give an opportunity to extend it to get the homework done, and they get accustomed to doing that, and so they just prolong getting the homework done instead of putting our foot down and docking the grade and say, hey, this is a policy. You're losing 10%, you didn't get it done. The next time, I'm not going to open it up so you can finish it. It's just leave it as it is. I think they just assume we're going to open the test up and extend the dates.
Yeah, there's probably something I mean, we really try hard to balance understanding people's circumstances and working with them. And then I know I kind of go into the realm of enabling those behaviors at some point because you're too understanding, right? And you open it up for too long. Others?
I think I see some students when they come in at first. I think even the students that want to be in construction, they have an assumption that it's easy, and there's not a whole lot of knowledge piece to it, and they really struggle with the classroom portion. And then they also anticipated that it was going to be all lab and no classroom at all. So it takes them a while to adjust.
They're all reasons that have to do with students, and they're all valid reasons and probably all happening. Are there any reasons that we can think of that might have to do with things that we can control? I guess Rob said that about keeping things open for too long, maybe, right? Allowing them to extend. Are there other aspects of your design or your delivery that you think might be making it easier for students not to turn in homework? Brooks, what were you gonna say?
Well, I kind of agree with what Rob said. I thought we are like we're enabling them because we're allowing that. We're not putting our foot down and saying, no, we have to draw a line at a point. Every single time we say, okay, I'll give you an extra couple days. Well, I have this excuse and now I have this excuse, and they've learned that they can manipulate it a little bit. And I almost feel like the problem we're gonna run into is if we do just draw that hardcore line, you're gonna have a large group that are gonna fail out right out of the hole in every single quarter because they don't want to believe you, especially if they're a freshman coming in. And you don't want to see that aspect either. So I mean, I'm hoping that I brought enough light to it with my classes that they know that come next quarter that I'm going to be more serious on this is our lock date and this is where we're going to be, because I have a lot of the same students repeating, or not repeating classes, moving on in other classes within my program. And I can draw that line. They know where this is my line. This is what we're going to stick to.
So Naomi, I have a follow-up question to that, and this is an intentional question to get us to a long way around to the answer. Why do you think that they do that? Why do you think that they manipulate you like that or try to do that?
What's practice?
Right, but right, but what about them? I mean, we assume they're all good, good kids, right? What is it that's causing them to want to do that?
I would say in general, we don't allow ourselves any downtime anymore. whether you're a high school student or you're a non-traditional student, we jam pack our days so much that then at the end of the day, we have to prioritize, oh my gosh, what really has to be done? If I know I've got a homework assignment that I think I can extend another couple weeks, I do put it off to do X, Y, or Z. I mean, I've seen it time and time again where not just a high school student, but our non-traditional students, they're working, right, 40, 50 hours a week. And they see a class they really want to take and they're like, oh, well, I can give up my Monday and Wednesdays from 5:30 to 9:30 or 5:30 to 10. Be stressful, but I can do it. But they are not considering at all the additional hours to do the homework and X, Y, Z. And I think as a society, we don't allow ourselves any downtime at all.
Yeah, you see where I'm going though with that line of questioning is, we know what we're identifying the problem. It sounds pretty universal, right? Like this is happening in a lot of different subjects. A lot of people have touched on very similar things. What's the cause? You know, like what's happening on their end that makes them that way? Is that something that they got by with in high school? You know, they were able to do that in high school, manipulate sort of the system or game the system. But the bigger thing is what's going on with them? You know, where are they going to be? So kind of where I want to take this is one thing that maybe you could try, and again, I'm just throwing things out for conversation, but try a pre-assessment. So when you start the course, the very first day, whether it's online or face-to-face, see if you can get the students to write something about to you personally, just one-on-one to you about what they think of themselves as a student, what they want to get out of this program, where they, you know, where do they think they're going to go with a career in the program. Get them to sort of articulate what's going on and maybe ask them a question. How would you rate yourself as a high school student? Were you D to F or C to B? You know, get some of that then becomes more illuminating to you about their self-efficacy, sort of where they see themselves. As I've heard more than one time, people say, you know, the kids tell me they're good with their hands. Well, what they're giving up right there is that's the place that I feel best, right? But we know for them to be a diesel mechanic, there's a whole other spectrum. So you can respond to that and say, that's great, man. And I'm so glad that you're good with your hands. We really, you know, that's going to give you a big head start in this program, but we got a lot of other things to accomplish. And what are the places, you know, that you feel weak in? Because we're probably going to touch on some of those with homework and due dates and, you know, technical materials. Another thing that I sort of, or one of the suggestions I would give you is maybe team the students up a little bit more, you know, make them hold themselves accountable, not just to you, but maybe to another classmate to some degree. Like, so if Jessica and I were in your class, Jessica and I are partners. When it comes time for class, Jessica has to tell the class or the instructor what it is that I got done. Right?
Did that today.
Did you? You're right. You know, hold. And so the other thing that I heard was COVID, and you all know what that did to us just as teachers and as a society. There may be an issue with the kids just not feeling like they belong, you know, like it's a social belonging thing. And so one of the things maybe that helps them get through their day or that they're craving is to have a little bit of a social network in their classroom, whether it's virtual or online, right? I got a friend that could, you know, maybe I'm too embarrassed to write the teacher because I wasn't paying attention and I don't know what the pages of the reading are in the book, but I got this friend over here I can text or email and they can tell me and then I'll get it done. You know, there's just a lot of dynamics, but I think we have to ask what's the problem at the student level and maybe ask that, you know, that's that whole narrative, you know, where are you, right? Are you ready to complete a diesel mechanics program? How well do you feel like you're ready to tackle this thing? And if you're not, where are you? You know, where do you see that I need to help you? You know,
I often start a class with the goals discussion. Like, what do you want to get out of this class? And what are you willing to do to get it? So if I wanna know how to wire an engine, for instance, or fix an engine, well, what are you willing to do? Well, I'm willing to be here and go to the lab. Great, you're also willing to do X, Y, and Z, because that's what it's gonna take for you to be excellent and reach your goal. And that helps people from the outside say, oh, I not only need to commit to being here and being in the lab, but I also need to figure out time in my week. And then the more specific we can help them be at the very beginning. Okay, so you say you think you're gonna have to spend 2 or 3 hours a week doing homework. When do you have time in your week to do that? Is it at 5 AM on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? Is it at 2 AM, 9 PM after the kids go to bed? You know, when is it in your schedule that you can figure, is it Sunday afternoons? That you can figure out that time to commit. And having students do that up front can sometimes help them. It also helps you because then when they say, oh, well, blah, 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 and so, well, you know, on day one, we talked about 2 to 3 hours. How are you doing with that? Where's that? Have things shifted in your life? You need to make a new plan because that Sunday afternoon time that you were going to spend doing homework, you're now going to the in-laws house.
You get some, oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
As far as those write-ups for the students saying, hey, I want to do this, I like a paragraph, whatever. I get forms every quarter, or excuse me, every August, September. Okay, actually, probably May, because I gotta take them through summer too. They actually apply to be in the class for being in high schools. They give me from their counselors, from their parents, their own writing, this, that. And yes, all of them should have a gold star next to their name by the way those sheets look. In high school, they teach them how to write an actual letter of how to say, oh, I'm great, this and that. So I have not found that type of stuff very helpful because they actually get here to class. The more extravagant their letter was, the lesser on the scale.
But that's when you hit them up, right? Because you know that whole thing was just window dressing.
Right. But
And
then,
half of it was a parent training.
but then first, on the syllabus, stuff like that, I actually put together a text message list. And I sometimes buy the folks pizza on like the first day. And that's what, to me, it actually is what brings it together. Everybody's kind of like, no big deal, don't know this fruit, don't have. You throw a pizza in front of them, and all of a sudden they're best friends for the rest of their lives. And they start communicating on that text message back and forth and get all of them connected to each other very, very quickly.
That's good.
So that kind of brings her, but there again, I've been doing that for, I think, 5 years now. And this quarter especially has been different. I've not done anything differently. It is the students and their engagement. The high school ones, the traditional ones.
Yeah.
You get every age group from 18 all the way to in their 30s pretty easy. Don't know what the issue is with that, but this particular quarter has just been kind of crazy. I haven't done anything different, and I've had very good results prior to.
Well, and I think also too, you gotta, as you know, educators, we gotta tell ourselves, look, this is just like the weather, you know, sometimes, you know, the group is gonna be better than another group. And it doesn't really reflect on me as an educator, you know, this is just kind of the luck of the draw. Every time I teach, I got 60 new eyeballs in front of me, right? 30 kids, 60 eyeballs, and I don't know all of those stories. But if I can get them to articulate, again, the kid says, hey, I'm good with my hands. My response is, well, what's your weakness? If you're good with your hands, tell me what your weakness is. I'll help you work on your weakness. You know, little things like that. Self-efficacy, you know, a kid does a test and he comes back and he sees a lot of red ink. Work with math faculty in particular about using green ink. Just the fact that green is not red. You know, when I used to get my stuff back, and the teacher would say, oh, it's going to bleed red, right? Well, that doesn't really help me feel like I'm doing very good if I've got a lot of marked up things. What do I do with that? What do I do with those feelings about I didn't do as well as I thought I could, or, you know I screwed off and I didn't study, but how do I get back on track? That's another thing. Like if I get off the freeway, how do I get back on the freeway so I can be successful?
So I should throw away my red highlighter then.
Use green. I know the math people are really bad about, they mark everything in red, and green does seem to sort of help the students feel like it's not a scolding, it's just more.
Do we feel like it's students coming into programs that they don't truly want to be in?
I mean, that could be part of it, goal setting.
And I'm only bringing that up because just yesterday, Hans was bringing a student around, a potential student with his mom. And he says, I'm thinking about doing the diesel program, but I'm also thinking about utility line. And I said, that's awesome. That's great.
Those are two pretty different.
They're pretty different spectrums, and you need to narrow down what you want to do, and you need to come in ready to go full on into the program that you want to do. And I don't think he didn't know where he wanted to go. He has no clue what he wants to do. He's just touring, I felt like, and you see that, and you see a student come in and they don't know. They don't know what they want to do, and then they're just kind of lost. They're just like in love and almost.
I think that certainly happens. What I do, just in the interest of time, I want to bring us back to the really specific question at hand so that you can go away with just some specific ideas to try out. And I heard time management. I think that's huge. Students do not know, they don't plan for the studying, right? So teaching them that time management up front. But the thing I kind of want to bring up that we haven't talked about yet, and when I looked through the literature about this and talked to a lot of faculty about it, that we are not always really good at communicating why we want students to do it. And we're not always really good at telling students and making that connection between the activity that we ask them to do in Canvas and our classroom time, and then the lab, making that connection really explicitly clear. It might be clear in our heads because we set it up, but if we don't tell students why they have to do this thing, then it's probably not going to happen as readily. So let's talk a little bit about, we're going to skip the implications since I think we probably already have talked a little bit about the implications. They don't know what they're doing when they get to the lab. But let's talk about some ways we might be able to do some of this. So if we accept the assumption that we have to integrate our Canvas and homework activities into the class, right? They have to be part of the class. We're the teacher of the classroom, and we're the teacher of the lab, and we're also the teacher of whatever happens in Canvas. We can't just offload that, expect people to do it and learn it and come prepared. Like, we have to really integrate all of that. Again, what's the value of it? Kevin talked about, you come into lab, and if you don't know the stuff behind it, you can't do it, right? So that connection is really important. And then the grade. I, for a long time, didn't like to grade homework. I kind of thought it was, I like that high school idea that it's practice, right? And then you come to class and I assess you. But if we don't grade students on it, they're not going to do it because they have to prioritize. They have time management issues, right? So when we grade something, we tell them it's important to us because what's important to them is passing the class. So assigning a weight to that grade, that the importance that you think that activity holds is really, really important. And then finding time for them to do it. So I'm just wondering if we could share some ideas about how we can do some of these things, especially how do we communicate the value of homework to them? That could be just by talking about it or preventing them from going or grading it. I want to hear some ideas there. And then how do we communicate that connection? What has worked for people? What do you think you might want to try? Oh, and then Jenny asked for the presentation. Yeah. You see it now, Jenny?
Well, Naomi, I know on our side of it, for us, the importance of the homework, they have to have an 80% or better grade in order to just get tested out to earn their CDL. So if they don't complete the classroom side of it and get an 80% or better, all that drive time out in the lab counts for nothing. We can't test them. So ours are already written in stone by the FMCSA, by the federal government for us at the CDL side. So we emphasize that every time in class, you must get 80% or better in the classroom portion in order to take your test, your drive test.
So if they need that to actually get the CDL, why aren't they doing it?
Well, that's the thing, you know, is they, and from talking to them in the class and lecturing, I can see them, they get off in the la la land and they get bored because the information is also being taught outside, real hands-on. So as they can see what we're talking about, discussing in the classroom, they have to actually do it outside in the truck when they're driving. And then the road instructors also put in real life situations. Here, this is why we're searching, looking ahead 12 to 15 seconds ahead. These are the things we're doing. And it makes sense with the homework, but they just think it's not important. They'd rather just go out and drive.
Okay. Value and connection of those activities. I'll also add that if we can't articulate what the value is, then we have to look at our assignments again, right? And maybe do some revision there.
So one of the things that I experienced, I've worked at 10 different schools, and every time I started a new school, I'm the heralded new expert, right? But that only lasts about a week, and then nobody pays any attention to what I have to say. But if I bring in an expert, it's one of my colleagues that's doing the same job at another school, and I say, hey, I got this expert from XYZ school, you guys all listen to that person. So maybe that's it. Maybe it's, you know, you're the head of the classroom. Oh, that's just the teacher. Maybe the connection is getting somebody on a video or.
We did that here.
Mhm.
We had Nebraska State Patrol come in and they spoke with the CDL program. And then they also spoke with the diesel program. And I feel they got on our end, and I think Rob and Mike would probably agree, they got it pretty good on their end as well. I feel like they kind of, you know, maybe it's stuff that we were saying that they didn't like to hear, but then when the guy with the badge comes in and he says, this is how it is, they're like, oh, he was right. It is the truth, you know, so I do agree with the
My name's
sometimes
David, by the way. Yeah.
pulling. I do agree with pulling in other stuff, you know.
Yeah, I think sometimes they just need to make up the connection between what it is that they're studying and what they're gonna be in life, right? And this is kind of that middle ground, and they haven't quite made the connection. They know, well, I'm going into this program, but what am I when I get out of here? What's it look like? And a lot of them just want to make a pretty decent living and have a nice, you know, paycheck. And this is the best thing, you know, most appealing thing for them, but they don't have a concept of, well, you gotta know how to write. You gotta know how to like talk to customers. You gotta know how to, you know, do math. You gotta be able to work with technology, read shop manuals, or just, you know, be a functioning adult in society.
Can I maybe pose a question of something maybe I've seen and also learned is sometimes what we assign in Canvas and what we assign them to read in the textbook is almost identical to what we're going to do in the lab. So there's so much overlap that as a student, I can say, well, why would I read about how to do it when I know that Lori's going to show me tomorrow in the lab, and that's how I learn anyway. So why would I waste time reading about it when I'm going to actually do it in the lab, and that's how I'm going to learn how to do it anyway. So is that, I just wonder, is that maybe some of it is that students know they're going to learn the information, but learn it in a hands-on way? Is there a benefit to there being a true disconnect between what is on Canvas and what's in the lab? You know what I mean? That they almost build on each other instead of overlap. I don't know.
I think something that I've done that has been helpful is providing really specific feedback on homework. I think once students see that like I'm taking the time to grade it and look over it and comment on whatever it is, it helps them see that I'm taking the time to do that. You can take the time to do it, and also allowing them to correct their mistakes or retry if they totally missed whatever it was. I know that's not always applicable for every assignment, but I find it's helpful And also starting the class with whatever the homework is, whether that's just a discussion or something. So that way, even if we are going to go over it, even if I am going to reteach whatever it was, they still have sort of this personal responsibility of, did you have any questions on the homework? Ask the person next to you. Was there something that you did on the homework that you felt good about, that you think you really understood clearly? Explain it to the person next to you. I think some of that is helpful because I think sometimes if we just mark the homework as like done, or we don't ever say anything about it, or we just grade it on Canvas, they don't always make that connection as clearly either.
Yeah, you want to take what they feel good about themselves and exemplify that while trying to address those weak, the things where they're weaker. So I think those are great strategies. That's, especially in online, one of the number one things that you'll read in any research is calling on students by name online or writing, like even in a face-to-face course, nice job, David. That really is touching to them. And again, it sort of pulls them into a self-efficacy place that maybe they're not in when they come into the class. There's a lot of psychology that goes on that we haven't really explored a lot. And I think COVID has sort of brought a lot of that forward. We didn't realize how much was happening until we took everybody out of classrooms and threw them in Zoom meetings, things that they needed. And those are some of the just kind of human to human things.
I think some of that too, when I've taught classes that have an automatic graded workbook or activity online, it's very easy to let Canvas grade or let the workbook be graded and the grade goes into Canvas. And I glance, did they do it? Or what grade did they get? But it's different than when I used to collect papers from students and I think about that student as I'm grading their paper. This grade just appears in Canvas and I don't make that connection between what this individual student understood and learned and talk to them about that as an individual. Do a lot of your programs use those automatic graded workbooks? Do you find that I became disconnected from their homework a little bit?
I try to go over what we've done, like I try to review the homework, and if we really bombed it, we'll dive in and go over those, because we can go into like the moderator and kind of see where grades are with everybody. And I try to go back on there because I didn't write our finals. I don't know what questions are on the finals until I get closer to the end of the quarter when I'm reading them. So I want to know, and I really do try to go in and look, because I want them to understand what we're trying to teach. Because there is stuff that we do go over in classroom that we don't get lab time with, but it is important stuff. So I try to make sure, and I can't say I do it all the time because I don't. But if I see where they really, really bombed it, and there's 2 or 3 of them, or 4 of them in a group of 5, I'll try to go back and re-hit on that topic. That's just what I do. I'm not saying everybody does it, but I do see that though with the speaker portion that just does it all and you don't have to do nothing. All under that.
I see some of that, we have quite a volume of online assignments, just, assignment after assignment, might be 20 or 30 assignments for a module or more than that even. So, I'll look to make sure they're all done. And, if they're all hundreds, I question it as much if they're all zeros, but, sometimes everybody just gets it. But, if there's a problem with everybody making it, like you said, we'll review that in class, maybe give everybody a chance to do it over. If everybody fails, it's probably something we need to cover more carefully in the classroom. And, just some of the strategies like that will seem to help, but, with such a volume of online work, it's pretty easy just to look, make sure it's done or not, check their, I have the score column right here. If everybody's got this many points, they're doing okay, and, it does probably get lost in the shuffle, I think, just the quantity of it versus the, did a good job on this particular one out of 50 assignments, I don't know how relevant that would even be. In the classroom, it's easy to say, nice job, you did good work today, things like that. But, online, it's pretty hard to pick an assignment and send it an email and nice work or something. Maybe not a bad,
That volume of work, students will often say that there's just too much to do. And I think it can be useful for us sometimes to do, just do a little informal curriculum map where you have an objective and you say, well, what are the materials that I am gonna give them on this? And then what learning activity do they have to practice it? And how am I gonna assess it? And if I have 4 or 5 activities for this one objective, I might be able to trim some of that down. I know when I create my classes, I like to add more and more and more in. And I think often our classes might be a little better if we took out a little bit. I know many of you have standards and external accrediting bodies that you have to attend to, but if there are ways that we can subtract sometimes to make things better.
Well, one of the first classes I taught as an adjunct, it wasn't built into Canvas fully yet. So I was able to kind of do that, like there was quizzes and there was tests, and I wouldn't give the quizzes, but I would give the tests. And I felt like I got better results with just doing the tests and not 50 quizzes in a module. I got better results out of the tests, but then I would use those quizzes later on, say they missed a day and they needed to make up. I could give them the quizzes to make up, but then they'd have to understand that you do bad on those, it's really going to affect your grade because we don't have a lot of those divided out over the quarter. And that was in a advanced drivetrain class that I did, and it seemed to work. They understood it. They weren't first year students, so they kind of got it already anyhow. But I could tell, like when I did the first module, they were just overwhelmed by the amount of material that was there. And I'm almost thinking that maybe I might try that with a class next quarter.
Lost your voice.
On some of the quiz stuff, as long as I get my objective, they'll have to understand that those are going to play a bigger part when you assign them. Because I do see the overwhelming part when I go and I look through the grades. It's just like there's a lot in there, and if they're taking 3 classes.
Yeah, another strategy that we use in online is just ask the students, how am I doing? Am I connecting with you guys? How do you, seek feedback on how you can be, meet their needs in a better way. Like, hey, maybe, I like to have things due at midnight on Sundays. Well, maybe that's not the right time for this batch of kids. What is there a better time? We'll change that time up. Or, like you were saying, maybe I need to chunk the material a little bit more for you. Maybe, we're giving too much all at once, maybe a little, but students will tell you, that's sort of what this TLTR is about. We're asking you guys questions like, how can we help you solve some of your teaching dilemmas or, come up with some strategies? And, I think people appreciate being listened to and having people help them be successful.
Then we've got about 10 minutes left. You could think about some of the ideas that you heard. Again, we can go back and kind of see those. Pretty much everything we've talked about really fits into some of these bigger categories, right? About connecting, about the value, about making it weigh what it's worth. And integrating into the class. Love, you talked about talking about it during class. Is there an area where you think, thinking about the reasons that your students gave or the reasons that you think your students aren't doing this, is there an area there that you could focus on? We can't do all of it at once. So what could you try to keep doing or do more of? Is there something you could do less of? And if you can think of something, what resources might you need? So we've got instructional designers who can help. We've got folks who kind of talk a lot about teaching and delivery that can help. We've got deans that can help. What areas do you think are most ripe for digging into?
I think quality matters And implementing that on a larger scale would be a step in the right direction.
Can you say why, Al?
They have a structure. It doesn't seem so random. What I see in a lot of courses is here's a bunch of assignments, get them done by this day. And here's the deadline. And that's really a difficult approach because then it just looks like a checklist. Whereas with Quality Matters, there's certain criteria that has to be in there that has shown effectiveness in classroom situations and also in lab situations.
Yeah, that's great. And really focuses on alignment too, right? Aligning the objectives and materials and activities and assessments.
Right. This is why we're doing this, and this is step one, then step two, and there's checkpoints. Is everything the student needs there to be successful? Rubrics. Does every assignment have a rubric? Does it follow a logical explanation of what's expected? Does a student know what's expected, or are they just turning something in and hoping it's right and then receiving a grade?
Al, I'm so glad you mentioned Quality Matters. Even if you're not an online instructor and you might not want to get certified in Quality Matters, we can still draw on those principles. As a matter of fact, our course design standards do draw on those principles. So we can work with you in looking at your course kind of with a Quality Matters eye, without going into the depth that maybe like Al has done when he's gotten that training. So yeah, that's a great one, Al. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Others? Becky, what would you like to see folks try?
I think that explaining why the homework is and how it will help you prepare to be in the lab tomorrow, I think making that explicit may help students realize the importance of it. That alignment piece that you just talked about.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I think I think it was Jen said about taking the time to grade it and make a comment. Maybe not even grade it, but make the comment on it. It can be important. And then just connecting the dots. We see it, we know it, so we think it's, but we might not be intentional when we explain it to students. And I think that, you know. Making sure expectations are clear.
Yeah, I always find that no matter how clear I think I have been, I probably need to be clear and I probably need to say it again.
Well, and then have the students say it back to you.
Mhm.
You know, that's the other thing, right? What are we gonna do tonight? You know, we're doing this. Okay, what are you gonna turn in tomorrow? That's a kind of a high school sort of thing, right? Just to remind them so that they make that mental.
Else want to add anything?
Well, you know, one thing that we're meeting on with the utility line is, and it's a little bit off the subject, but we have instructors that teach the same subject with different sessions. And so, you know, one of my big fears is, are they all grading the same? Are they reopening assignments? Because that's not fair if one's not doing it and then the other one is. And that's our meeting Monday, is we need to be on the same page and you know, figure these out. And that's kind of what we're going through right now.
Yeah. So not just aligning within your own class, but at the course level and the program level too.
Thank you, Tim. I couldn't agree more with that.
Just to make sure all the students are getting the same. They're getting the same stuff within the program that they get from one instructor to the next. And we're talking about the same thing in the diesel program right now, and making sure Kevin's teaching 1000 the same way Brooks is teaching it, the same way Scott's teaching it. And then with the adjuncts is there, I mean, we want to make sure that we're doing the same. Because why should Jimmy get a better education than John? It's not fair to them. And so, I mean, with utility line talking about it, we're doing the same thing. We've been really hard to talk on it the past probably month, I'd say. Just trying to make sure we're doing the same.
Well, and you guys are in the classroom, so it's easy over time to sort of just drift apart, you know. You gotta have those conversations just to make sure we're all kind of pulling back together. Because, you know, how much time do we spend talking like this with each other?
That's exactly what I was gonna ask for next. You've already answered my next question, which is, whoops, not what I want to do. Show you my. If you have ideas for future topics for this kind of session, let us know. So this is exactly what we want to do. We want to make topics that make sense for you and that are useful for you and come to where you are. So we'll be out and about every other week doing things like this, and we can bring your topic to you. So let us know. You can send an email to me, to your dean, to David, to Jessica, and we'll come and have these conversations with you.
Yeah, takeaway for today is there anything that you need us to do to better support you now? Like that we learned from this little bit of dialogue? Because that's what we do. We're advocates for, you know, you, we're your support team. Is there anything that we can deliver to you after today's discussion?
I heard a couple of things. Some work on alignments. Some maybe some curriculum mapping. That's always fun. We could do it on curriculum mapping. That's coming up for everybody who are turning in their cars and their cars. That might be fun. Cars and cars season. Everyone, thank you. Everybody on Zoom, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Great to see you. Hi Marty, I just saw you.
Naomi, do we need to do this again? Like this session again?
Well, I think, yeah, when we kind of just touched the surface of defining the problem and thinking about why. So we can certainly do a follow-up to this one if folks are interested in it, but thank you for coming. Have a great afternoon. And hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Naomi.
Just like all.
Right.
That's having a problem, because that's like been weird.
Because you start to think like, what am I doing wrong, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm new to it, you know, I'm new to teaching, and it's like. I want them to get it, I know what I'm trying to put out there, and then I feel like they're getting overwhelmed by stuff, and you just. I need to keep it together.
One of our goals was that so people don't feel alone. You know, you're in your classroom, in your lab, you just assume you're the only one having this problem. It's something that you've done wrong. And we don't have time to talk to each other usually, so that's, I want to have you do a testimonial for me.
Well, and I'll tell you, it's not just MCC there. You said you came from multiple.
10 schools, man.
Jack and I had the opportunity
You
to
just
have
moved
round
up to New
table
York.
with other colleges and universities. It doesn't matter if it's Auburn University, Cal Poly, or Metropolitan Community College. We're all like, oh, you're having that problem too. Okay, good.
Or Alan Carter.
Yeah, right.
I worked at the med school in Wisconsin in 2002, and I heard kids aren't coming to class because they tell me